You weren't born worrying about the future. You weren't born overthinking every decision. You weren't born doubting yourself. So where did it come from? Somewhere along the way, your mind absorbed beliefs, fears, and conditioning. From society, from your past experiences, from the things people told you about yourself. And without realizing it, you started living inside a script, one that was written before you even had the chance to question it. A script that tells you you need to prove yourself, you need to be liked, you need to have control. None of this is real. Because what happens when you stop feeding the illusion? What happens when you stop reacting to every thought? Something shifts. You start to see the mind for what it is. A tool, not an identity. A tool that's useful when you use it consciously, but a prison when it controls you. And here's the real truth. Most people never escape this prison. They live their entire lives trapped in their own minds. They never see reality for what it is, only for what their mind tells them it is. That's why two people can experience the same moment but live in completely different realities. One person sees rejection, the other sees redirection. One sees failure, the other sees a lesson. One sees problems, the other sees opportunities. It's not the situation. It's the filter the mind is using to interpret reality. And until you learn to step outside of this filter, you will always be trapped in its illusions. So how do you break free? The first step is awareness. Because awareness is the only thing the illusion cannot survive. When you become aware of the mind's tricks, they lose their power. That thought that made you anxious, now you see it as just a thought. That fear that held you back, now you realize it was just an assumption, not reality. That worry about the future, now you notice how it's pulling you away from the present, where life is actually happening. And the more you observe, the clearer everything becomes. You start to realize that 99% of your suffering comes from the mind, not reality. Because right here, right now, in this exact moment, what is wrong? Not in your thoughts about the past or the future, right now. If you're breathing, if you're listening, if you're present, there is no problem, only the mind creating one. And the moment you see this, the illusion begins to break. Because now you know something most people will never figure out. You are not your mind, you are the awareness behind it. And when you start living from that awareness instead of the illusion, everything changes. You stop taking thoughts so seriously. You stop getting lost in emotions. You stop needing to control everything. And ironically, that's when life starts flowing in the way you always wanted it to. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. You've seen through the illusion. But now comes the real test. Can you live outside of it? Because here's what happens to most people. They have a moment of clarity, a realization, a brief glimpse of truth. But then, the mind pulls them right back into the loop of thinking, back into identifying with every thought, back into believing the stories the mind tells. Because the mind is clever. The moment you start to wake up, it throws doubt at you. It whispers, what if this isn't true? What if you're just overthinking? What if you're wrong? And before you even realize it, you're back in the illusion. So how do you stay free? The first thing to understand is that the mind does not want to be exposed. Your conditioned self, the identity you've built over years, doesn't want to dissolve. Because it believes that if it lets go, it will die. And in a way, it's right. Not physically, but the false self, the one created by fear, control, and attachment, begins to disappear. And that's terrifying for most people, because without their stories, their struggles, and their ego-driven identity, who are they? That's the question that keeps people stuck. The fear of emptiness, the fear of not knowing who they are without their suffering. And so, they hold on to it, even though they're exhausted, even though it keeps them trapped, even though a part of them knows there's something beyond it. But here's what they don't realize. On the other side of that fear is freedom. Because when you stop identifying with the mind, something incredible happens. You don't become less, you become more. More present, more aware, more alive than you've ever been. Because now, for the first time, you're not being lived by your mind. You are actually living. You are not your thoughts. But have you ever truly watched them? Not reacted to them. Not gotten lost in them, just observed. Try it. Right now, let a thought come up, and just watch it. Notice how it appears out of nowhere. Notice how it tries to hook you in. Notice how, if you don't react, it eventually fades. This is the secret to stepping out of the illusion. You don't fight your mind, you witness it. And the more you witness, the more you detach. Thoughts still come, but they don't control you. Emotions still arise, but they don't overwhelm you. Doubts still appear, but they don't define you. You're no longer inside the storm. You're watching it from the outside. And from that space, nothing has power over you. Why does the mind create so much noise? Because it's constantly trying to control everything. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It wants to know what will happen before it happens. But life doesn't work that way. And so the mind fights reality. It resists what is. It tries to force what isn't, and in doing so, it creates endless suffering. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything, life flows perfectly. The only thing standing in the way is your resistance to it. So what happens when you let go? You stop forcing, you stop gripping, you stop clinging to what you think should be, and suddenly, everything aligns. Because now, you're not fighting life. You're moving with it. Here's something the mind doesn't want you to know. The thing you're looking for, the peace, the clarity, the sense of self, you already have it. But the mind tricks you into believing it's somewhere else. That you need to read more. That you need to meditate more. That you need to become someone different before you can be free. But freedom isn't something you achieve. It's something you realize. Right now. Not in the future. Not when you have all the answers. Not when your mind finally quiets down. But right here, in this moment. Because the truth is, there is nothing missing. You were just taught to believe otherwise. Now, the illusion of self. Who are you? Not your name, not your job, not your thoughts. Without all of that, who is left? If you've ever asked this question, you've already started waking up. Because once you begin to question the self, you start to see that it was never as solid as you thought. Your identity is just a collection of memories, beliefs, and experiences. But you are not those things. You are the awareness that sees them. And the moment you recognize this, everything changes. Because now, you're no longer trapped inside the illusion, you're outside of it. Watching it, and when you can watch the illusion instead of being lost in it, it no longer has power over you. Most people never wake up. They live and die inside the mind's stories. But you're starting to see through it. And that changes everything. Because once you know the mind's tricks, you can't unsee them. And once you stop being controlled by them, you become untouchable. Not because life stops throwing challenges at you, but because now you see them for what they are. Just passing moments, just temporary experiences, just thoughts, nothing more. And from that place, you are free. If this resonated, let me know in the comments. Let's wake up together. Because once you see through the illusion, you never go back. See you in the next video.